Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge. So this is my first video since the update. And it's this exciting thing. That means that I will probably continue to cover Digimon TCG even after Gate Roller comes out. Because, hey, it's confirmed for English. That's happening. It's coming on, what, January? Start of January? Which is about when I expected it. Like, if you're not going to have the English release confirmed at the very start, then it's probably not going to come until about a year after, which that's about when this lines up to. So, you know, cool to see that happening. Now, with that said, I mainly want to talk about some speculation based on the information we have. One, on how promos will be handled, and two, how behind are we going to be when we start getting sets released normally. So before all of that, let's just go through the information we do have here. We're just going to go through each of these articles real quick. Quick rundown of the important information here. This is just basic information on the game. The important thing here is, like, we don't have, in the product section, the starter decks aren't actually listed anywhere yet. But from here and the pre-sale section, we know that we're initially only getting the first 3 starter sets, which is smart. You don't want to release 6 starter sets at the same starter decks at the same time. Honestly, if I had to guess, I'd imagine that that's probably one of the biggest reasons why the launch set is being split into 2 instead of just 1. Because, like, if you do just 1, you kind of need to release all the starter decks with it. And if you do that, well, like, that's too many starter decks. 3 is basically the cap. So splitting them into 2 lets you split up the release with the starter decks, and I imagine that's one of the biggest reasons for that. There's going to be a pre-release thing at certain stores in November. So I feel this is important for judging when 1.5 might come out. Because, like, it's technically getting a release in November, 2 months before January. So, like, well, typically you would expect, okay, you want to have a 2, maybe 3 month gap, especially with what Bandai has already been doing with Digimon, between sets. But with the fact that 1.0 and the first 3 starter decks are technically actually getting released in November, it might not be that long. Like 1.5, let's just get into the actual important stuff. Okay, so what's happening basically is the first 3 sets are being merged into 2 sets, version 1.0 and version 1.5. One of the really important things I want to note here is that the booster pack size was increased to 12 cards from 6 cards. I have seen companies in the past do these sort of set mergers and not really alter ratios to account for that. I'm looking at you, Buddy Fight. So the update of the booster pack to 12 cards is a very clear indication that they're properly taking the higher amount of cards into account properly, so that availability does not suffer as a result. The other thing is that there are 187 cards in here. So the thing that matters with that is that across the first 3 sets, there are approximately 339, I believe was the number, cards between those first 3 sets. So if we assume that we're getting a similar amount of cards in 1.5, that would give us about 360 to 370 cards released. That leaves us like 20 to 30 open slots that aren't covered by the 3 booster sets. So what would those be? Well, the only thing that those could be is promos. And it so happens that right now there are 20 promos released. And it's safe to assume that there will be another promo pack released alongside BT3. So with that, we go up to 28. Basically, that's the perfect amount. Now, also, it might just be the 20. because like 1.5 could be any size that it needs to be. It could be just be the 20, and we get the BT3 promo pack for our initial tournament support. That could also be what's happening. Yeah, either of those are easy possibilities, but like you need to do something about the promos that released earlier, because you're not going to be able to release those through normal means, and you need to find a way to release the magazine promos to the English format anyways, and putting them into just directly into the set as ideally low rarity is the best way to solve that. So yeah, I believe, like, my theory right now is simply that they're going to be in the set. And I imagine the 12 cards per pack thing is only going to be for this set, for this in 1.5, and maybe 2.0. We'll talk about that in a moment. And that would be the main reason for the special release, special boosters signifier rather than the normal booster set signifier. Now, in the card pack thing, we see BTO1 to BTO3 at the top. So it seems likely that the card codes are being kept the same. And there's a reason that's important. Because in the little trailer they released, we saw some cards. And this is one in particular I think it's important to note. Because this is the one where we see a promo. Right there we see Patamon, the promo version. And it's a bit small. It can be a bit hard to see, but this is very clearly the promo code for it. So if the set codes are being kept the same, then that makes sense for it still being in this special release booster. Otherwise, might have some weirdness going on. Might dash those hopes entirely. But ideally, that's how that's going. Ideally. We also know for sure that we'll be getting green in here because we're told that this set will have all 7 of the Digidestined. And this heavily implies that Dukemon is going to be in here. So we're of course going to have some BT2 stuff in here. Which is good to see. It's very good to see, because one of the problems I saw being raised about a global release is that BT1 meta is kind of solved. And there's not a lot of interesting stuff going on in it. So it would be a bit of a slog to play. But if our initial release comes with some stuff from BT2 to spice things up, then that's a lot more interesting. And with 1.5 potentially coming out like maybe a month, like I would assume at the longest BT 1.5 would come out in March. That would be the latest I would assume it would come out. But you could very easily release it in February, since this is technically releasing in November, and like it's getting that pre-release in November, like a release of some magnitude then. So you don't really need to worry as much about players being overwhelmed. It's still going to be somewhat of a problem, but it's better to catch us up as quickly as possible. Now, on the subject of catching us up, so right now we are set for an October release, I believe, of BT3. Let me just double check that. I believe that has been BT3 comes out. So the current gap between sets is 2 to 3 months. So this releases in January, which means that would be about when Booster Set 4 is coming out in Japan. Yeah, it's October, end of October. So that would mean that as we're getting caught up on BT3, the first half of our catch-up, BT4 would be coming out in Japan. So gotta do something about that if you want to have us caught up in any capacity. There's a possibility that we just end up like 4 or 5 months behind, like is typical in like Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon. But when you're going to the trouble of doing these merger sets to catch us up, they might want to catch us up a bit more than that. So a concept that entered my mind is that these won't be the only special version boosters we're getting, special release boosters, and that there will be another one, 2.0, which would be a merger of Set 4 and Set 5 that would release around the same time that Set 5 would release in Japan. And with that, we would be all caught up. That's the thing they could do. Very interested if that's going to be the case. I'm also very interested if Black and Purple is going to be in this first set, or if they're going to be saved till 1.5. I would prefer if they were to really help shake up that Set 1 meta with more interesting stuff, so that it's not just Omnimon Rush. But yeah, very, very excited. I need some good card games to play in my life. Though of course, caution whenever Bandai is involved. They still need to prove that they're not just going to abandon this game at the first sign of difficulty. But we'll see. I'm very excited for this. Those early months of 2021 are going to be hell in my wallet because this is releasing and Gate Roller is set to release around the same time. So that's not going to be fun. But hey, it's going to be fun for playing card games. It's not going to be fun for my wallet. But hey, we'll see how that goes. Gonna have a lot of content to cover around that time is all I'm gonna say. So with that said, this is Hunter Surge signing off.